Ruka Yisrael Kabbalat Shabbat.
Can I get you anything? Hey, a pina colada taste sounds good too. Or a glass of rosé. Anything. Hey, how are ya?
How you doing?
How are you doing? I'll be right back. I've been called to do something, I don't know what it is.
She's the one who told me. She's the one who told me about Sunday. There's a demonstration.
Demonstration where?
Well, all over the country. Go to San Carver too.
I thought it's Saturday, no?
It's
That's Saturday. I'm sorry. It's the 5th. It's Saturday.
Thing or what?
Good.
Where is it gonna be? I got nothing to do Saturday. Where?
No, it's Sunday.
Oh, you just said Saturday.
Well, I thought
It's Saturday.
It is Saturday.
Tomorrow.
And it's,
Sabbath, you can't do anything on Sabbath.
Well,
right.
you can
Where's
launch,
it
I guess.
based?
What?
Where is it?
Rona knows.
And what is it specifically? What is it specifically?
getting
It's
rid of,
against the administration. That's all I know. I don't know.
As far
This
as
is, I'm telling you what I was
There's
told.
one here and there's one in East Hampton.
That's
And
all I
what is it for? It's called hands off, so hands off Medicare, hands off Social Security cuts. hands
Excuse
off-
me, could you say that again louder?
The name of the whole thing's called hands off.
Good.
So hands off my Social Security, hands off my Medicare.
Hands off libraries.
And exactly, hands off. And they're everywhere. There's one here in Santa Harbor and there's one in East Hampton.
Right, there's one in East Hampton. It's from 12 to 1.
Some are
it's
one.
night.
If
12
you
to
look
1.
up hands off,
Isn't it 12 to 1?
one, it's funny, I think one, I can't remember, I think Sag Harbor might have been 12 to 1, East Hampton 1 to 2.
Well, she
Or the
said
other way around.
Rona thinks, yeah, I think that first. I don't know.
But they're gonna be everywhere, you know.
You don't think it'll happen? All over the United States. People are gonna march.
Dokie. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Well, it's great to have you back.
Really great to be back.
All right. Okay. Well, I think I'm maybe like the last rabbi that doesn't make this announcement for each service, but you know, if ever you were wanting to turn your phone off for a little bit of time and put it away, this is probably a good Shabbat for just that, you know? Yeah, I think so, you know? For those of the investing type, I imagine, all the more so. Just put your phones away. Nothing is going to change now. And it's nice to have a simcha to celebrate for a while. Our simcha tonight is to celebrate lots of different ways. One of the most important people in this temple, one of the most wonderful women that I know, Josephine Getling, is turning 17 tonight, and we wish her a very happy birthday, Joe. And as you know, it shows you, you know, how much, and Josie will tell you, right, that obviously we all come from different backgrounds, different faith tradition. One of the great things about the era that we live in, really, is that we can all be together and share our experiences. And Josie will tell you, every once in a while, if you're not paying attention, you might even hear her humming along to one of the tunes. It's one of the great things of getting here early on a Saturday morning, right, is I'll catch Josie singing Oseh Shalom or things like that as she's going around and doing. But, you know, I think in all these years, I don't know, Josie, if we've ever asked you to do this, but I asked if tonight she would come up along with one of our members to light our Shabbat candles. So, and Gail's going to come up too? Even better. So we're going to invite Josie and Gail, and Mimi is going to be our... Well, you know, this is, I think, a truly wonderful moment, and to light our 2 sets of Shabbat candles. And while they're coming up to that, why doesn't everybody turn to each other, wish each other a Shabbat Shalom? All right. Shabbat Shalom, Will. Shabbat Shalom. All right, yeah, I'll help with the clicky part here.
Great.
Okay. Josie, you want to do the letter? Okay, all right, but you'll bring your Sicilianness to the experience. Amen, Josie. And we'll... Amen. Mimi, thank you very much. You're not done.
May we be blessed with Sabbath joy.
That's right.
May we be blessed with Sabbath holiness, but mostly may we be blessed with Sabbath peace.
Amen. Amy, thank you very much. Happy birthday, Josie. We'll sing happy birthday later for sure. Josie. And, you know, it's a treat, absolute treat. All right, and we're, of course, always happy when Will is with us here, and we can begin our service singing together. Kabbalat Shabbat begins on page 130 at the very top.
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Naria, letzor yishenu nekadma fanav betodah. Naria, letzor yishenu bizmirot naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai.
We're on page 131, Shiru Ladonai, just in the middle of the page in Hebrew.
Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, baruchu shemo, basiru miyom leyom yeshuato, safru v'goyim kevodo bechol ha'amim niflotav. Ki gadol Adonai, umhural meod, no Adonai kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo. Baseru miyom leyom Yeshuato.
We'll turn now to page 132 at the very bottom of the page, or Zarua.
Or zaru ala tzadik, uleishrei lev simcha. Or zaru ala tzadik, uleishrei lev simcha. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho.
We'll turn now to the top of page 134.
Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor vekol zimra, b'chatzotzrot vekol shofar, harir lifnei hamelech Adonai, yiram hayam umlo, tevel veyoshveva. Neharot imcha uchaf yachad harim yironenu lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz yishpot tevel betzedek ve'almim b'meisharim. Yiram hayam umlo, tevel veyoshveva, neharot imcha uchaf yachad, harim yiranenu.
We're now on page 135, the last Hebrew paragraph in the middle of the page.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho.
We'll turn now to the 29th Psalm, which is on page 136.
Mizmor leDavid, Havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, Havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, Havu l'Adonai kevod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai beharat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod hirim, Adonai al ma'im rabim, Adonai al ma'im rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzei halanon, Vayarkidehem kemo egel Levanon veSiryon, kemo veneremim, kemo veneremim, Kol Adonai chotzev la'avotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yechol el ayalot, Vayechesof ye'arot, ובהיכלו כולו מרכבות, כולו מרכבות, כולו מרכבות. אדוני למה בו ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום.
And we'll turn now to page 138, L'chadodi, and a reminder that we will do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraph, and for the final paragraph, for those that are with us here in the room, we'll rise and face the door as we walked through just a few moments ago.
Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'diborechad hishmianu, al meyuchad Adonai echadu. Shemo echad Hashem utiferet v'tehila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri kiva orech, kumi uri, shir daberi kevod Adonai, alaich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom, Ateret bala gam besimcha, uvetzola tochemune am segula. Boi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Please be seated. We're now on page 140, just where the Hebrew indents in the middle of the page.
Tzadika tamar yifrach, keres balvanon iske, shetudim bevet Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu, od yenuvun beseva, deshenim verananim iu lehagid, ki ashar Adonai tzuri velo avlat abo.
We'll now rise in body or spirit for the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144 and remain standing through the Baruch Hu on the next page. Yitkadal vehitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach irtei ve'amlich machutei.
B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayedecho Beit Yisrael. Bagala uvizman kariv ve'imeru. Amen. Yesh Merabah Mevarach, Le'alam Le'almei Almaya, Yitbarach.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudsha
Richu.
leila min kol bechata v'shirata
Tushbechata v'nechemata, Tamiran be'alma.
v'yimeru.
Amen. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Okay, please be seated. We're now on page 149. We'll read together in English toward the very top of the page. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
Havir yom u'mevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai tzevaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv ha'ravi.
Amen. We'll turn now to page 150, and we'll read together in English toward the bottom of the page. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel.
Ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, v'hem negei yomam v'layla, ve'avatecha tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please join us on page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem.
Emet.
Let's read together now on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn to page 158, Michamocha at the very top of the page.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, Adonai imloch leolam vaed. Adonai imloch leolam vaed. V'ne'amar kifar Adonai et Yaakov, ugalom yad chazak mimenu, baruch atah Adonai, ga'al Yisrael.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu begins on the top of page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomereinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomereinu lechaim. Ushmor tzeitenu uvoenu lechaim ushalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomereinu lechaim.
Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim. Turn to Vishamru on the top of page 162.
Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Before we begin the Amidah, as we always do, I just want to point our attention to a piece on page 163 at the very top of the page, which every week my eyes go to it. Every once in a while I'll read it. It's actually very complex. It's not a simple statement. I'll read it, and I want to just leave it with all of you to think about as we enter the Amidah for our own silent time and reflection. It says, "We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time." With that, I'll invite us all to rise, and we will begin the Amidah together as we always do on page 164. From that point on, we'll continue silently. Please go at your own pace. When you're finished at the end, if you're still standing, you may be seated.
Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We'll turn now to page 371 as we offer our Mishaberach, our healing prayer for this evening. And before I read the list, of course, of those we're thinking of in our community and connected to our community, I don't think I mentioned it last week, but the really terrible earthquake in Myanmar and in Thailand, and devastation of that is still not really understood because of the nature of the way Myanmar is at the moment as a country, and just making space for us amongst, again, praying for the people we're most connected with, to thinking about whenever there is suffering of that nature in the world, we can make some space in our hearts to pray for those people as well, whether we know them or they're connected to them directly or otherwise. But tonight in our community, we're thinking of Ronnie Lidowitz, Madeline Egelfeld, Rachel Bat Marsha, Sue and Lisa Wartor, Abigail Blum, Kate Sherwood, Betsy Tepper, Ame and Warren Cass, Rivka Bat Rachel, Lorraine Danis, David Dowling, Sylvia Devora Bat Francis, Shelley Newmark, Diane Axelrod, Gabriella Spicer, David Kyle Klotman, Lorraine Davis, Kim Birnbaum, Deborah Block-Kroll, Sylvia Orn, Rachel Bat Ora, Peretz Ben Shlomo, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Jill Fagan, and Stan Posner. In addition to those names that I just read, if you have loved ones that you'd like to share their names this evening, we'll start on this side of the room and work towards the back, and then this side. And if you have names to share, just please raise a hand so I don't miss anybody.
The Dukowski family, Diane Schwartz, Mom Kenny, Mario, Penny, Rodman, Judy Lipton, Warren, Erin Rubin, Noel, Mark Newmark, Meredith Berger, Downey, Debbie Major, Karen Eckhart, Lisa Cotter, Roz Feinberg, Captain Anthony.
Of course, we'll invite those watching at home to add the names of your loved ones as well. So we join together in the middle of page 371 and page 371.
Mi sheberach avoteinu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We now offer our prayer for Israel in time of war. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, you know that the Jewish people are one nation with one heart, and now that heart is broken. O healer of broken hearts, binder of their wounds, be with our brothers and sisters who've been taken captive and with the families of the victims. Watch over the hostages, break their bonds, and bring them out from darkness to light. Proclaim release to the captives, liberation to the imprisoned. Comfort the families, bring them under the shelter of your wings. Bring complete healing of body and spirit to all of the wounded. Bind up our wounds and grant us healing. Tzur Yisrael v'goalo, rock and redeemer of the people Israel. Bless the state of Israel, the initial manifestation of our redemption. Shield it with your care, spread over it your shelter of peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Grace them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend us. Crown their efforts with victory. Bless the land with peace, its inhabitants with lasting joy. Shomer Israel, guardian of Israel. Strengthen and bless the defenders of Israel who stand guard on the land, in the air, and on the sea. May we see the promise of the psalmist realized. You turn my mourning into dancing, my sackcloth into robes of joy. God, protect, preserve, and restore peace and well-being to Israel, your people, and together we say.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. So, truth be told, I had wanted to give this sermon a few weeks ago, but the nature of the world has prevented it from happening. I've had to focus on other things, but it is related and prescient, and I think in so many ways essential, and I hope is meaningful to hear as tonight is as much learning about something as it is anything else. So the story for me begins, and some of you may know this and some of you maybe not. Before I went to rabbinical school, after I graduated from college, I graduated from the University of Wisconsin with a history degree, which was worth about zero in the job market. You try to get a job as a history major in it's just, my dad sends my resume to literally everybody on his list of thousands, and I got one phone call. But it turned out to be the phone call that changed my life. So I was from a man named George Blumenthal, a wonderful, visionary, unique person who asked me to meet him at Mendy's on 57th Street for lunch. And, I went into that meeting, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to get any kind of job. I didn't even know what the job was for. I just said yes. And we started talking, and we happened to be talking about something that I had just studied in college. Very random thing about the story of a temple built by Jews in the Nile River. Believe it or not, the river has a small island called the island of Elephantine. And I mentioned it, or he mentioned it, and he said, okay, when do you start working? And I didn't know what to say. He said, okay, Monday. He said, how much do you want to be paid? And just needless to say, it's good that I didn't get the words out of my mouth, because I would have said minimum wage, and he paid me far more than that, which was wonderful. And I spent 3 years working for this man, doing all manner of things. But where it connects to this story is that one of the things that I was involved in the early 2000s was the digitization of rare Jewish manuscripts, documents, actually in a number of very important places all over the world. And this, again, in the early 2000s was a very novel thing. The internet was still kind of in its infancy, and he wanted to build a Jewish history website, and by a stroke of a bunch of stories, which I can't tell tonight, we ended up, in the British Museum, we ended up in the Israel Museum, we ended up at JTS and their rare documents, HUC, any number of things using digital photography, which again, in those days was extremely expensive and only a handful of people really using. And so I was in the room, this, pretty disheveled-looking 20-something-year-old, with some of the most important documents and manuscripts in the history of the Jewish people. And while I had studied a bit, and as many of you know, and I grew up with a deep connection to Israel, and I thought I kind of knew history of things, I found actually that I realized I knew very little. And I especially knew very little when it came to primary sources. And most of the information that I had received in my life was secondary sources, through somebody's lens. And being in the room with some of these documents was really quite life-altering in a lot of different ways. And I don't remember if it was one of the things we digitized or whether it was something that he himself bought as part of his collection, but one of those was an original copy of Der Judenstaat, Theodor Herzl's seminal work, in which he imagines in a time, again, where imagination was absolutely necessary, the potential of something that would be called Der Judenstaat, the Jewish state. Okay, so long before World War I, before World War II, before anything resembling the state of Israel, Herzl and many, many others were trying to envision what the life of the Jewish people could or ought to be in an age of emancipation, in an age of enlightenment, in an age in which possibilities abounded for our own internal solution to what is sometimes referred to as the Jewish question. Where do we belong in the world? And ultimately, he and many others determined that it was necessary, essential for us to have not just a homeland for ourselves, but that our homeland made sense to be in our original homeland. And so he and a number of other people gathered together in the First World Zionist Congress in 1897. Bonus points to anybody know who's, other than Will, where it took place? Very good. Excellent. Basel, Switzerland. Okay? And this moment, right, on the one hand, lots of people sort of know amorphously, and many people are familiar with the very famous picture of Herzl standing on a balcony, kind of contemplating the possibilities. I like to think I grew out a sort of Herzlian beard for this moment as I'm sort of subconsciously struggling. It's more of a Nordau, if anything, but it was a seminal moment in the history of our people, especially in the modern era, because it brought together all of the people, or most of the significant people, who were thinking about this very question. And what was fascinating, and I think studying more and more, right, when I saw that original document, I realized I couldn't get by just sort of the simple knowledge. I needed to go deeper. I needed to learn more. I needed to read not just Herzl, but Nordau and Pinsker and Jabotinsky and all of the other kind of great original thinkers, just to understand what was going through their mind. What were they thinking? What was their vision, and what was the reality of it? And how do you go from a vision of something like that, from a people, generally speaking, disempowered to make any effect on their own lives, to then fast forwarding to 1947, 1948, ultimately, and the founding of the State of Israel. And while certainly I don't think any of it could have happened without Herzl, and without Herzl's unique vision and his way of bringing people together, it would be a mistake to think that the State of Israel exists only because of Herzl. What it really exists, how it came into existence, I think really begins with the First World Zionist Congress. And especially the fact that you had hundreds of people gathered together who thought very differently, who had a lot of very different images and ideas about what it is we ought to do for ourselves, what a Jewish state might look like, where it belonged, what should constitute it, secular, religious, at that point in time, Marxist, communist, socialist, capitalist. Should it be a place of workers? Should it be a place of intellect? Should it be ultimately a place that relies upon strength and military power? All of these different permutations of the questions and the answers all gathered in one place. And if you see, there are pictures of what it looked like. I mean, it's really almost impossible to imagine that you have this many people all gathered together and something productive, let alone positive, comes from it. Why? Because, again, of so many different views. In our lifetime, right now, to have that many different viewpoints all put in one room together, we'd be lucky if anybody left, right? There'd be nothing left at the end of it. It'd be a bloodbath. And it's not to say that everybody got along, okay? There were some very, very animated arguments, disagreements, but the various perspectives were given opportunities to speak, to present their platforms, to gather together with other people who thought similarly, and yet at the same time to leave at the end of the day realizing that while there are differences, right, this one word, Zionism, this idea is sort of amorphous sense of there is a place for us and there is a potential for us if we can coalesce around an idea and create from that idea and that dream and that vision a tangible place from which anything is then possible. And so I bring this to our attention because currently the voting is now open for the 39th World Zionist Congress, of which everyone in this room ought to be eligible to vote, whether you realize it or not. Now, a little bit of explanation of what that means. What is the World Zionist Congress today, and does it mean anything in a post-state world? And the answer is yes. First thing to understand is that the Knesset, the modern Knesset in the State of Israel, is, in essence, the component of the Israeli side of this equation. When Israelis go to the polls and they vote for their government, that is Israel. That is Israel's government, but it is also part of this World Zionist Congress as well. But the diaspora matters also. And so we are given an opportunity, I believe it's every 4 years, for voting on any number of slates. And this year's, I believe, there's somewhere between 21 and 23. When I looked it up, got different answers. Typical, right? But that we, each of us, have an opportunity to voice our opinion on what this word Zionism means. And not just on what it means, but it has a very real effect in Israel and around the world. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's something close to $5 billion worth of allocations over the next period of 4 years, 4+ years, which in many cases is the defining or determining amount of money that seeds any number of organizations, non-government organizations, things within the State of Israel, and where those monies ultimately go has a big effect, knock-on effect, as to who is in power, who has perspective, who has a voice, and ultimately shapes not just the present but the future of the State of Israel. It's extremely important. The challenge is that in our world, how many of you knew that this voting was going on other than Beth? I know at a hand. This makes me happy to see so many hands go up because I actually feel remiss and that I haven't sent anything out to let people know. And this is the opening conversation about it, but I wanted to make sure that our entire congregation knows that it is in our power to raise our voices in a way that I think a lot of us actually have felt very voiceless in the diaspora, especially in the last couple of years. Now, again, even in this room alone, even with the certain unanimity we have on a number of subjects, I suspect that when you look at that slate list of the 21 or 22 or 23 that are available, that many of us actually may come to a determination that we're not quite so lockstep as we might think. And that, I would argue, is not a bad thing. I think one of the things that we sort of have increasingly lost since those original Congresses, the first 5 that took place one year after the other, is the appreciation for this multiplicity of ideas. And not just the idea, right? Obviously, you have left, right, and center. I'm not talking about left, right, and center. I'm talking about what exists between those spaces. Okay? That it's possible to find yourself in the left part, or the center part, or the right part, and agree with 80% of something, but 20% really not so. And here you actually have some real nuance, some real gray area, well, not the right terminology, real nuance, right? Places in which you can find yourself in the story of Zionism, in which you can really feel like you have not just a voice, but that you are combining your voice with others who may feel very similarly to you. Now, there are some of the obvious contenders, as I said, right? Left, right, and center. I will say, this is not like the United States elections where I'm barred from giving you my opinion on who to vote for. Nevertheless, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I would never want to do that regardless. But I will tell you, I will be voting for the Reform slate, as I am a Reform rabbi. It is sponsored by all of the both American diaspora communities in their various permutations. But I'm voting in that way because as I looked through each of these slates, and I looked through each and every one of them, this is the one that spoke to me. This is the one that felt like at this point in my life was representing the values that I personally care for, and gives me a voice in a way that I felt personally comfortable with. But I will tell you that that exercise of reading through each one of the slates, and just to make it easier for everybody, I'll send this out in an email later. I made a little sort of QR code. If you scan it, you can go right to the website. You can read each slate has a flyer. It tells you its positions. It tells you who is on its delegate list. You don't vote for individual delegates, but if you vote for that slate, depending on the number of votes they receive, they will have representatives. Many people who I admire deeply on that one slate. But I read everything from, again, the most extreme opposite position to mine, all the way to the places that felt most comfortable to me. And I read them all, not just, because I felt like that was a responsibility, especially to all of you, that I came prepared to the conversation, but because it felt to me like it was an important piece that has been missing for me in a really long time. As much as I am deeply uncomfortable with a number of the positions of a number of the slates, in ways that I won't articulate now, but you can probably assume, I needed to see that. I needed to see that there are definitely a lot of people who feel as they do, who will represent and support those slates in a way that I wouldn't. And while I struggle with that, and I wish in some ways, and I'll articulate it this way, I wish in many ways that those slates didn't exist because of the ideologies that they represent that I find abhorrent. But I wouldn't want them to not exist at the same time because to me that would be artificial. It would be inauthentic. It would be the opposite of what I think the spirit of the first Zionist Congresses were really all about. It was not necessarily a question of consensus. There needs to be enough consensus to build something, certainly, but the desire was never for unanimity. It was never for an amalgamation of ideas into some singular entity. And that, I think, is the danger of the moment. Right now, there really is one word that is attempting to speak for everyone. And that word increasingly becomes harder and harder and harder to represent all in an authentic way. When we say the word Zionism, it means something different to many people. It has core ideas, but its manifestations both in ideological and philosophical ways and in very tangible ways. As I said, money is involved here, and that money, again, fuels and feeds any number of things that are going to happen between now and the next election. That we have to understand that the complexity of the moment won't go away by us wishing it away. And I don't think it will ever actually go away. But I think if we act as if those other entities don't exist and they do the same, okay, if we diminish each other, if we say that one, again, is is some ultimate right and one some ultimate wrong, while, in a simple fashion that would be incredibly convenient, and while I might sleep better at night, it wouldn't be us. It certainly wouldn't be the state of Israel, and it absolutely would not be anything associated with the term Zionism. It is a complex time, and a complex time requires complex thinking, and it requires deep thinking. And so I would invite us all, first of all, to vote, okay, to vote. Second is, I would really invite, if you have the time, do what I did. Read each slate. Read each and every one of them. Consider them, think about them. Do not make a rush decision. As simple as it is to go in and check reform, as wonderful as that is, as much as it feels right to me, I would feel much better knowing that each of us actually really took the time to consider what does that word mean to us, individually, as a family, as a community, and ultimately as part of this larger entity that we call the Jewish people. And as a last word, I would simply say that I think one of the greatest strands since October 7th, in my lifetime, certainly between Israel and the diaspora, has been an increasing feeling on the part of the diaspora that we have no practical voice whatsoever in what happens in Israel. On the one hand, that's true. And on the one hand, it should be true. Okay? I'm not a citizen of the state of Israel. I didn't fight there. I don't vote there, despite the many times I've been there in my life. It's not the same thing. I don't deserve to vote in their election. I don't deserve to ultimately elect their leadership. But I think that the wisdom of Herzl and the wisdom of the World Zionist Congress as an entity is to acknowledge that the state of Israel in the modern day is something rather unique in the history of humanity, in that there is a homeland and there is a diaspora, and those two things are connected to each other in a very deep and very important kind of way. And that strain, as I said, has gotten thinner and thinner over time. I think part of that is because, as I've given far too many sermons at this point pointing out, is because we've been thinking less and yelling more. And I'd like to see us do the opposite. Okay, we'll never stop yelling at each other, that's a reality. But I think going beyond that surface level, considering really, again, just how important it is that we have a voice in something, and especially these days, is really at the core, I think, of my rabbinate, I know what this temple's hopes are for the state of Israel, and I hope, as I said, for world Jewry altogether. So one last piece of this, which is that this may be the only time I've ever heard of voting requiring payment. I just want to explain that ahead of time so we don't, yes, this is not some corrupt, based on last week's other sermon about corruption, this is not corruption, I assure you. It is just the reality of the administrative costs of running this. So there is a $5 cost associated, and I mean this with absolute sincerity. If there is anyone for whom that is a financial burden, you come to me. Okay, that's not, and it shouldn't be a burden for anyone. But otherwise, the criteria essentially is, if you are a Jewish individual, and this, again, one of the very rare times in which matrilineal descent are accepted, okay, so there's no question of anybody determining who is Jewish based on their conversion or otherwise, right? Anybody who is part of the Jewish people who is over the age of 18 by June 30th, 2025, so even if you know a 17-year-old who will be that age, they can vote. Okay, you must be a U.S. citizen in our case or legal permanent resident. Trickier questions these days. One unique thing which you should read also is that one must affirm the Jerusalem program. Jerusalem program, just to boil it down, if you had to find like the core pieces of the World Zionist Congress and the World Zionist Organization that is represented by it, their sort of core definition of what it means to believe in Zionism leaves open a lot of possibilities of view, but there are some anchoring points, so read that carefully and make sure that you feel comfortable with that. And I don't imagine anyone in this room has voted for the Knesset in November. I don't think we've got any Israeli citizens in the room, so I don't think that will imagine to present a challenge for any of you. But otherwise, it is really one of those moments where it is open to all. And I hope you have actually plenty of time. Still better to vote sooner than later. It's open until May 4th, so you can vote anytime between now and then. After the elections, the delegates will be chosen, and I believe the actual Congress itself is not until October. So the manifestation of this later on will not be clear at the immediacy, but in the immediate moment. But I hope very much in this election that we will find a way to represent our values and our love of Israel together. And whomever you vote for, again, is your choice and your private choice. But should you have any questions, should you feel like your investigation of the topic has led you to some confusion as to what to do, call me. Let's talk it over, and we'll see if we can help to figure out exactly what. Yes, Kathy.
By voting for reform, aren't our delegates already pre-selected?
So yes, it's somewhat the way that the Knesset works, which is that you vote for a slate. Same way in the Knesset, every slate has to provide a list of people.
I think Angela Merkel.
I'm sure, look, my guess is that some of the great names of the Reform Rabbinate and Cantorate are both on that list. Where they slot in from 1 to 120 or whatever it ends up being, that I couldn't tell you. But you can't vote for individuals. You can only vote for slates, but depending on proportional voting and how many delegates they are awarded based on that voting, they will generally go with the heaviest hitters from the top to the bottom. So, and no, in case any of you are wondering, I am not on any slates, so you cannot vote for me. No, not either. So maybe in the future, who knows. But as I said, for anybody who's with us here tonight, I have this little sheet here. You can just point your camera at this. It'll take you to the website. You can also just Google it, and I'll send an email out about it next week also to make sure that the wider community gets it. But I hope very much that you'll take the time to do so. And, as I said, Israel is at the very heart of I know myself and so many of you, and it just feels like now more than ever we really need to make sure our voice is part of the multiplicity of voices, again, diaspora and Israel working together, hopefully to build a better future, as it were. I did not when I voted, but I did hear some people did have some issues with the website. If you run into that problem also, I am the tech person at the temple, so I will do my best to help with that as well. Can't solve every problem, but I'll certainly try my best. But I bet you're not the only one. I did hear about some people, especially in the early days, I heard there were some problems. So hopefully they fixed those things. But in any case, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and hope we could talk more about it. Welcome Will back to the Bima, and I'll ask us all to rise in body or spirit as we turn to page 586, the very bottom of the page, Aleinu L'Shabeach.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה לייצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 591.
ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Now ask those at morning and those observing Yardside to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. We think first of those who've passed in our community in recent months. Heather Abrams, David Amanoff, Louise Crandall, Stephen Dickman, Judith Emanuel, Harry Fadum, Michael Fagenbaum, Sharon Goldblatt, Barbara Goldfarb, Harry Heller, David Carlin, Morris Kramer, Ann Lieber, Jeanette Myrowitz, Jeffrey Miller, Phyllis Rowan, Gloria Sapiro, Ronald Tompowski, Randy Wasserman, and Joel Whitner. We also marked the art sites that occurred during the last week for Justine Adler, Stephen Benjamin, Gloria Bennett, Morty Schwatzky, Kenneth Cohen, Rose Cohen, Isidore Deshevsky, Shirley Deinitz, Hyman Egelfeld, Woodrow Emanuel, Sandra Furman, Mildred Gauze, my beloved grandfather, Rabbi Samuel Geffen, Arthur Gold, Gerald Grant, Murray Hertz, Anna Katz, David Kelmanson, Hilda Kirschner, Jeanette Kopp, Elaine Krotman, Barbara Kushner, Charlotte Neustad, Patricia Reisen, Bernard Riker, Lois Rosenberg, Sophia Schoenbach, Anita Sheldon, Alan Silver, Max Silver, Paul Silver, Sophie Sletman, Iris Sloan, William Speck, Gussie Tanzer, Betty Tuft, and Jacob Wyman. In addition to those names that I just shared, if anyone is saying Kaddish for anyone we didn't mention, want to mention their names? I'll invite those watching at home also if they have names to add, and I'll invite the mourners to join with me on page 598. If it's your custom to rise alongside them, you may do so at this time. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divrach irutei v'amlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. B'agala u'v'zman kariv v'yimru. Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabba Mevarach Le'alam U'Le'almei Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal Shemei Dekudsha B'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom imramav uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay, and our most important announcement, of course, is we wish Josie a very happy birthday, and we're going to sing her happy birthday next door. And Josie doesn't really eat sugar, so there is a delicately created fruit experience, I'm sure, for you, Josie, which we're looking forward to sharing. But thank you, Josie, for everything that you do. And we hope this is a wonderful birthday weekend for you with all the good things that you deserve. So we love you. We love you. So for that, of course, we'll welcome our next door to our Oneg Shabbat as soon as the service is finished. Also, a reminder, services begin tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and Torah study tomorrow will be at 12 o'clock. It being the first of the month will be our Women's Torah Commentary Torah Study discussion, this time led by Joan Price, so we hope you'll be able to join us either in person or online. A reminder of our virtual lay-led minyan continuing every Sunday at 9:30, again in response to the war in Israel. The only thing I'll just give a heads up, that one Sunday where this may change, and I'll have to talk to them about it, is that the end of Pesach is a Sunday morning service, if I'm not mistaken. Right, no, Saturday morning service.
It's the
the first one, right? It's the first one.
Festival
Then it will continue every Sunday at 9:30. Not forget me. We'll just give this over to Will. He knows the answers much better than I do. Also, this Sunday, April 6th, the Women's Seder, led by our very own Will Brockman, will be here at the temple at 12 o'clock. Please let Shelley know if you want to participate. You still certainly can. Just for those that may be still a little bit on the fence for our congregational Seder, or maybe if your plans changed, today was the date to sign up because we need to order our kosher meat. But Shelley has graciously extended the deadline a few more days, so if you still would like to come, please do let us know. We really would hope to have you here with us, and we hope that wherever you are that you have a wonderful and, as I say, a Zissen Pesach, one of great joy. Also, just a reminder, we're still trying to match people, so if you're able to host for the first night, or if you're looking for a place to go, please let Shelley know, and we'll continue to try to make those connections. Nida Mitzvah, Andrea, Monday, 10:30. Post B'nai Mitzvah class with me, April 7th, this coming Monday at 6 o'clock. Virtual Musar class with Myra on April 7th at 7 o'clock. And Rabbi Alan Levin's bereavement support group continuing this coming Tuesday, April 8th at 6 o'clock. Also, for those that may have missed it, so Cantor Lauren's senior recital was this past Wednesday, and I believe there is still a video, but HUC makes...
Video forever.
Forever?
Yeah.
Good. So if you want to find out how to find it, ask Will, because he's much more in the know there.
I can send it to you, and maybe we send it out in a news.
I think that would be a lovely thing. So, but we're very happy for Lauren and for Aaron.
Yes.
And for those that don't know, Lauren accepted a position at Stephen Wise in Los Angeles, not in the city. I know you got to accept it in the city. No, but this is Lou's home congregation from growing up. And her husband, Aaron, has taken a position at the Milken School, which is right across the street, which is where Lou also went to school. So some wonderful connections there and great places, which we know will take good care of them. So we're very happy for them. We're always happy when our students find wonderful places to be. And Will's got some years left, but we know, I'm sure, he'll end up somewhere great, and we'll celebrate you then, too. So with that, we'll close, and then we'll do Kiddush and Motzi before we go next.
We're going to close on page 627 with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharetz, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitzchem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We rise for Kiddush, page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabahat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron lemaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Ivanu v'charta, v'eltanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'ahava uvratzon, inchaltanu baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-shabbat.
Amen. L'chaim.
Chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Come next door. Anybody who wants the flyer, right there. Used up all of our blue ink. Always the challenge. You know, always a challenge. A week from it. Oh, okay. I will make sure Shelley knows that because I just read them as I'm told. That's.